Ben James here with Lap Realty and Royal LePage Network Realty Corp. I just wanted to talk to you today about kind of one of the stages in the buying process, or I guess you could say, if you're a buyer, some of the expectations and some of the things you should be doing in order to purchase a home. So number one, get pre-qualified. Talk to a lender, talk to a mortgage broker. I mean, there's some people will say a mortgage broker versus a bank, and a lot of times that's correct. Just because a mortgage broker has a little more flexibility in what they can do with you. A bank, unfortunately, kind of has to run within the bank's guidelines, and every bank is a little different. So that mortgage broker has the option to situate you in whatever bank works better for your particular, I guess, profile. So it's super important. There's more than one reason for that too. One of the bigger reasons is so that you don't let yourself down when you think you can afford here, and really once you get the mortgage pre-approval, you're buying under here. So you're setting yourself up for a little bit of failure, and it's kind of unfair to you, because it's disappointing. You think you can spend $400, and once you're pre-approved, it comes in, you're really only spending $325 or something like that. So so that's important to have that right up front. That should be pretty much your first step. The day you sit and say to yourself, I want to buy a house, the first thing you do is contact somebody to talk about a mortgage and how much you're going to be allowed to spend. Super important to do that first. Secondly, obviously, the buying process is there's a lot of moving parts, and you're likely going to use a realtor to do that. That's probably your next step, is interview a couple of realtors. Most people probably nowadays Google search realtor, or they get a referral from a friend. That would probably be the two most common ways to figure out who you're going to use for a realtor. But I would recommend, no matter what, even just interviewing on the phone quickly. Hey, I'm thinking about buying a house. What can you tell me about yourself? Ask a couple questions. Some of the more important ones would be, something to do with the market. And not always are we going to have the exact answer. I mean, I couldn't tell you the stat today if you said, well, in this part of Red Deer, in this price range, how many houses have sold? I mean, that's something that a lot of guys probably don't have the answer to, unless they just recently sold a house in there and kind of had that in the back of their mind. But they should be able to give you some stats or some information in regards to what the market is doing. Is the market a little bit slower? And maybe more than just, yep, it's a buyer's market. That's kind of an easy answer. Can you elaborate? What makes it a buyer's market? What's happening? Especially going back to, I'm thinking about buying in Black Falls. What's that look like? I mean, how good of an opportunity do I have right now? And seeing if they can kind of maybe break down a little bit of what the market's doing in Black Falls for you. So I think that's important. One of the things I do, I always bring my buyers, when I meet with them, kind of a checklist of things that you should expect of me. And I like this. I like having I'm gonna do an automated custom home search, which every realtor has access to in our board. It's the back end of Realtor.ca. We are able to basically customize a search for you that emails you every time there's a new update, or emails you once a week, or emails you once a month. Depends how far along the buying cycles you are. So it's pretty important to be on that. I want to make it as easy of a process for you, so I make sure that I can forward you the listings as soon as they pop on. And from the back end of the system, I'm getting you about a day and a half lead compared to MLS.ca. So if you, or Realtor.ca, if you go on Realtor.ca today and I listed a house today, you probably won't see that house till tomorrow or even a little later, even the next day. But if you're on the Realtor search that I set you up on, you're getting it immediately. As soon as I hit enter, I've inputted the listing and I hit enter, you're getting it because it's on the back end side of things. So it sends you, it says, hey, there's a new listing if you want to go look at it. So it's important to have that kind of information, or at least know of that information. Not every realtor probably uses or utilizes that to your benefit. You know, obviously we're going to do showings together, and I'm going to walk you through the properties. You know, answer questions about the properties, about the neighborhoods. Those things are important. At least for me, I know they are. I feel I do a good job listening to you, and that kind of coincides with one of the other things, is knowing your needs and your wants. It's important to understand, make sure I understand what you need and what you hope you can get. Those are, you know, two kind of different things. If you've got a family of 4, well then you probably need at least a 3-bedroom home. You know, people work with 3 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms and bunk bed and stuff like that, but you know, that sort of thing is more of a need than it is a want. Versus I would love an ensuite. Well, I mean, depending on your price range, we might not get that chance. You know, if maybe your wife's a hairstylist and wants to set up a salon in the basement, well, make sure the property A has a basement, make sure that it's in an appropriate neighborhood. You know, there's little things like that we should pay attention to or should be listening to so that you get that information. Once you've picked a property or a couple of properties, it's fairly easy for me. It takes a little bit of time, but to send you some comparable sales and say, give you the information. I want to educate you. I've always said that I'm not just a realtor, I'm your consultant. So if I'm not educating you or bringing you up to speed on properties, or even the fact that you really like this property, guess what, guys? It's only been on the market 3 days and the realtor has said there's been 6 or 7 showings. It's probably not going to last long. If you're really serious about it, let's write an offer and let's get that process going. Here's the comparable sales. This is sort of what the average is. This is what the really high ones are, and this is what the really low ones are. So it kind of, we should be able to do that for you, and you should be getting that information from your realtor. Once you've, well, then it comes down to negotiating and helping you negotiate the offer. That's important. Those types of conversations, you know, I'm going to have with you as well, and say, okay, well, if this is what you think you want to spend on that property, then maybe we're going to start here. That's a recommendation, and kind of go from there, and then help you through that process, that stage, that step of buying a home. Once you've got an offer, the process is simple. I want to be able to give you advice on, if you haven't picked out a mortgage broker, which you should have by now, or a banker, help you with that process. You need to give me that information. You say, Ben, I'm working with so-and-so, here's the email address, because I have to be able to send off all the documentation. It's not your job to do that. My job is to email or fax the mortgage broker or the banker the offer that's been signed, any pertinent information, the MLS data sheet. You go to work, do your regular day thing, and the mortgage broker and myself and the home inspectors, they do their job. And that's another thing. I can refer you a couple home inspectors, refer you, you know, if it's, you know, you need a wet inspection done on a fireplace, all of those types of inspections and things, I can refer you. Even if it's to the simple thing where you're dealing with, like, say, you don't really want a home inspection, but you know the furnace is really outdated. Okay, well, here's a recommended plumber or an electrician or a actual furnace person, certified furnace person that can help you kind of make a decision on whether or not that's important. You know, same thing with roofing, roof stuff, any of that kind of stuff. send you the appropriate people for that. Again, just following up with the lender, making sure that the timelines are met. That's really important to understand that those timelines are met. Coordinate get you with lawyers and all that kind of information too. We have a database of lawyers and inspectors, and we want to make sure you have access to all of those people. So that's one of the steps with interviewing your realtor. You should know this stuff. Number 3 is just, again, kind of reiterates back on when you're having those conversations with your realtor, but knowing your needs and wants. So you've got pre-qualified, you've kind of figured out who you're going to use for a realtor. Now we need to have a conversation. I need to know that part of your needs and wants. It's super important, and I should be paying good attention so that I understand it. I hear so many times that buyers say, well, that realtor is just not looking after me. They're not listening to what I want, and I'm looking at houses that aren't appropriate or aren't what we want or need, and so that's why it's important that you state that very clearly on what it is you want and you need in a house, in a home. So that way I can break it down and say to you, well, you're not going to get this because you're only qualified here, but you are going to get these, and then kind of step it up from there. So your needs and wants. Timelines. It's super important to understand them, super important for me to know how quickly you want to move, and then I can explain to you how quickly we can move. In Central Alberta right now, this is the end of 2017, I really can't get you into a house in under 10 business days from the time we remove conditions. It's pretty tough to do it any quicker than that. That's just based on land titles being transferred and all the lawyer documentation being done and completed. It's about a 10 business day gap. There are ways to get you in sooner, but even then at 10 business days, that's like 2 weeks, pretty tough to get much quicker than that nowadays. Just all the paperwork and the processes, it takes about that much time. Better average would be probably closer to 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and especially based on most properties have homeowners in them that are also moving on, so a good 4 weeks or 30 days is more accurate. So timelines are important though, because when you come to me and don't give me, well, my husband's transferring, our house has sold and we have, our possession is in 2 weeks, okay, well, you probably should have started the process just a couple of weeks sooner so that we could make sure that you're not in transition, I don't know, staying in a hotel room or that sort of thing. So timelines are very important. And then, sorry, I'll write that down. And lastly, costs. There's a lot of different expenses and costs associated with buying a house. One of the things that you don't pay for is the realtor fees. The seller is who looks after the realtor fees, and I get that paid through the selling realtor. So you don't have to worry about a realtor fee. But some of the costs you do need to know are inspections, and all those inspections, depending on what you're getting done, can get up there pretty quickly. The average property inspection on an average home is about $550 right now. Some guys are a little bit less, but around that 500 plus GST or 525 plus GST. Those inspectors, they're there for 3 hours and they've got infrared cameras and they're on the roof and they're drudging around outside for about an hour, they're drudging inside for about an hour, and then they're with you for an hour explaining everything. And they have a detailed list and all that kind of stuff. If you get a wet inspection, the cost associated with that depends on the type of wet inspection you want done. If our home inspection brings up major issues where we need to get a professional in, depending on who you're getting or what you're getting done, that professional might want to get paid. That electrician might want to get paid an hour to come and get a closer look at the issue that's caused or showing up in the property inspection. So you got to kind of set aside or have an idea that you're going to spend, you know, $700-800 on inspections, and hopefully it only works out to just one property inspection and you're good. But kind of have that in the back of your mind that there's the potential for a bit of money to be spent on inspections. Other costs, lawyer fees. You got to know that you're going to be paying lawyer fees. Again, the nice thing about the lawyer fee part of it is that when you're doing your deposit or your down payment, when you bring your money in, the lawyer usually has a way to kind of just add that as part of the costs there. So a lot of times that's a little bit nicer. But again, cost, deposit or down payment, those two things. Typical deposits, you know, you're running, depending on the size of the home, anywhere from probably $2,000 up to $10,000, depending on how much you're spending on a house as a deposit that gets held in trust. That check has to clear and sits in a trust account. So again, another cost some people forget about. Yeah, that's kind of the big important things. I hope you got some good information about it. Again, kind of going back to how I hope the process works, and the way I like to make sure my buyers are guided is kind of set up like this. You know, I want to get you pre-qualified. I want to make sure you know the steps, and know that I'm educated in the marketplace. I want to understand your needs and wants, and I want to make sure you know what the expectations of your needs and wants will be, based on your pre-approval and that sort of thing. And I want to explain to you timelines, and I want you to explain to me your timelines, and then costs. I want to make sure you understand that there's going to be costs when you buy a home. And I think it's silly to say, well, a home inspection isn't important. Well, when you're spending $300,000, $500 to have somebody who's qualified in walking through a home and noting some issues or problems, or maybe it's a nice home and doesn't have any issues, to me, I'd pay for that inspection every time. I've done so many deals where the home inspection has gone through and found some stuff that we had no idea about, and it's, you know, it's kind of opened the eyes to the seller as well, because the seller sometimes didn't have a clue. So really, like I say, having all of these outlined is a big part of the process. And yeah, just wanted to say thanks for listening. Again, it's Ben James with Lab Realty and Royal LePage Network Realty Corp. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a shout back. 403-396-1290. You can look me up online, benjames-labrealty.ca. Take care.